I said, let's just flex today.
All right.
Let's expand our palettes because we always have good debates.
Right. Yeah. Let's do it that way.
That's right. That's what I said. Let's flex.
Okay, I'm ready for you.
Good morning. Good morning,
morning.
Mr. Amber. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right.
Yeah. Well, I thought it would be good that we just kind of freestyle it because our debates is always so interesting, and a lot of your listeners and watchers are not aware of how expansive your mind is and how it runs in all these different directions. Yet it converges to one central point. And that's the main thing that I want to make sure that I highlight about that brain of yours. So as we were doing before the camera got turned on, we was talking about Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black History Week, and that resulted in Black History Month. And you have made up some interesting points about how he explained that one of the the central most miseducating thing about us was that we was taught, as you said before, to worship people outside of ourselves. Why is that important?
I think that's so important because it affects your self-esteem so much, right?
Right.
So when you talk constantly, like, and then when we look at how we educated on history, about us,
right,
it's not really,
it's horrible.
Nothing to
Right.
look up to.
Right. It's
so
horrible.
then when you look up and then they glamorize the Greeks, right? Who
Right.
they is as the people, the things that they built,
Right.
how they had created this society, credited
Right.
with being the first society.
Right.
And then you turn around and educate yourself and say, all they educated people and writers was educated by blacks? Hold on.
But yeah, exactly, because that was left out.
Yeah, so you left out that they was all went to Egypt and became educated. Then you left out that they built their schools in Africa.
Right.
The Greek first school was in Africa.
Right. And every subsequent school was modeled after the ones that they originally built there.
Yeah, so it's like it must have been about knowledge amongst our people for you to decide to say this was the university. Even now we're going to build our university. We went and educated ourselves through y'all, but we're going to build our university amongst you all. So this must have been where all the knowledge thrived at. Right? So it just made me look at myself different. Right? And then coming from a place in Milwaukee where, we under the boot, we under the thumb of racism. All the statistics show that, the incarceration rate, we got the highest incarceration rate zip code in the country, our incarceration rate 39.1 compared to any other group, we got a high incarceration rate, everything,
a high poverty rate.
Right. So I that's why this book is so important. And as far as the miseducation of the Negro is because me receiving and going back to that education built a certain self-esteem.
Right.
It built a certain pride of who I was, and it made me see myself different.
Right.
And when I seen myself different, I seen those around me different. I seen people who look like me different.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. If I take away your value in yourself, then you're going to take away or devalue everybody that looks like you.
Exactly.
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 So that's why I be saying, like, that's why this book is so important. And the reason why we started doing the interviews is because I will go all over the place. And
Right, because you're passionate. Once you like we said at the beginning, you're passionate. Once you discover that for the longest, like us all, I was guilty of it too. That the hatred was so internalized and it's so strong and it was so seemingly permanent that it seemed like it was suffocating. We couldn't get up under it, couldn't get from under it. And then when you break through it, you're like, well, I'll be son of a, oh, okay. And then you just want to share with everybody. And at the same time, while you're trying to share with everybody, you trying to get everybody to learn what you tried to learn as fast as you learn it. And everybody's mind is different. Everybody's brain processing different. Like I said, you was diagnosed with dyslexia, which is supposed to have been a crippling mental, intellectual dis-ease, when actually not only does it mean you learn different, but it has a genius learning component to it, because the way I was taught to learn was more so linear in a straight line, whereas you you learn expansive and contracting. You learn it goes out and then it comes right back in a concentrated form, and you can put everything in its place where it's supposed to properly go. Whereas somebody like myself, and I don't speak for everybody, I just say a lot of us who learns in a linear manner, we get the subject and we add the pieces as they go along, but not too many. You can get all of them and you can put them all back together quicker than we can. Not that we can't. It's just your brain helps you do it quicker because of the so-called dis-ease of dyslexia. When we both know, no, that's not. That ain't true.
I think what happened with our system is that when, like Milwaukee, economically, you pressure to work, 2-parent households, right? So we got away from the ability from the nurturing parent to be able to learn and learn each child. You see what I'm saying? Like, we had cultures in the past where you wouldn't name the child till they 4 or 5.
Right.
Because they named them based off of who they was, their characteristics, right?
Or how they were developing and the personality that they was developing into and growing into, right?
So then you know how to nurture when you know and identify that person, core person, individual.
Right.
Then they learned how to nurture that individual based off
according
who
to
he
those
was.
Strengths,
right. And I think that's what it is. We have differences, and we haven't learned to nurture those differences because we stuck in this rat race where we doing these labor jobs and we have 2-family income households working, right? So, and what happened with that is that it allowed us to build. While we work in these 2-family households, we built everybody else up, but wasn't able to build our foundation up.
Right, because we missed a lot of points because we were so busy focused on, and that was a point you made before. We're so busy focusing on building the wealth for other people, but talking about we want to be wealthy without realizing, okay, but you're not spending your energy and time trying to learn to build your own wealth. You're spending your energy and time and dedication, because that's how you was miseducated to see yourself, building it up for everybody else. And at the same time, in the most aggravating manner, neglecting these young lives that you help bring into the world and basically set the stage for them to follow in the same line, same train of thinking, same line of self-sabotage.
So I realized being in Milwaukee, having dyslexia, growing up in that school system, right? And that was never catered to. Right. So that what made me come up with the concept that, hold on, this 2-family working household concept ain't working as building foundations.
Right.
And then I looked at it that, with us as like, you have to understand, like, we're like, the husband might work and then the mother might be studying to be an accountant. Right. But nobody's studying how these children learn. Right. So now we coming up with kids that are in Milwaukee, you in foster care at 1 year old, 1 year old. That's an emotional detachment. Right. So now that affects us socially, but we not educated in the way to understand those whole aspects of us as a people. Right. So you disconnecting a social connection. They in this group home or this or what they call daycare, where all kids, they don't know, they playing around, all this, whatever, right? But then, so you pick them up 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, getting ready for bed. Where's the real nurturing?
Right. It's being done by somebody outside of you. Right. So there's a disconnect there. And then, even though they are being socialized in a sense to know how to learn how to play nice with other children, so forth, as you said, there's an emotional disconnect from the actual parent themselves. So since that was never properly formulated or strengthened, when you just send them out there, they're going to go with whatever they're told, and then their new instructor becomes the caregiver
Right.
or whoever it is. That's why those attachments become so strong with them as opposed to the parents. And then I've seen instances of that, and I think that's where you was going. I might be wrong, where the parent come in and they can't. The child doesn't want to leave with the parent, or the child doesn't want to mind the parent, and now the parent is mad. But then the person who is caregiving that child for those many months or years can get that child to quiet down and do everything else. And now the parent feels some type of way, usually black, and then you're mad at the other black person who did just what you told them to do, what you asked them to do, and what you had to pay for them to do, whether you got assistance for it or not. And now there's another disconnect again within the community.
So what we did to make up for that is we made our kids materialistic. I'm gonna get you these shoes. I'm gonna get you this for working all these hours, right?
Right.
But
trying
now,
to make up for it.
Now we did this without understanding politics. And then, so therefore, the school system was removing the technical trade programs. Most of the schools used to be set up based off technical skills.
Yes.
You know, South Division had electronics, Tech had mechanics and a few other things.
It had mechanics, woodworking, electronics, engine working. I keep going because I went there.
Yeah, so but Tech was specialty for that. But various schools, all schools had a specific trade that you could learn, or you that you could opt into, and you could complete that trade with a skill, basically a vocational degree. Right?
You're absolutely correct.
So we didn't understand the politics of that. So we was making our children consumers. They was doing NAFTA, moving your jobs, you making your kids consumers. So there was no jobs for them to maintain that consumerism. But this come from us not being educated about politics, right? They're not going to, because they're not doing that in school, and we're not doing it when we come home.
Right.
See, all education got to be redone when children get home. And this is what Kaji Wilson was explaining to us. And for us, it's a difficult task because we have to re-educate ourselves as parents.
Right.
We have to learn civics, how politics work, you know, so that we can do the politics for them. This is what he was talking about in the miseducation of the Negro, you know. So, and because we haven't did the politics, now you look in our community, in our neighborhoods, and you see all these dilapidated houses and properties, and then it costs too much to fix them up because we haven't educated ourselves on the political process. Right? Or we might make excuses. This is why Kaji will say we haven't educated ourselves politically. We'll make excuses for, like say we didn't get the George Floyd bill passed. We'll say the filibuster, right? Why they didn't pass, right? So I'm gonna say, well, knowing how the filibuster work, I'm gonna say, well, that means the Democrats was too lazy to pass the bill because all they can do is you just got to stay long enough for them to out-talk them.
And that's all it is.
So they was too lazy to pass the George Floyd bill because they weren't gonna sit and wait him out. Right. So you wasn't significant important enough, but you don't know that. You really think the filibuster is a real excuse, not adding the fact that they passed hundreds of bills without any Republican support.
Exactly.
See, so the filibuster don't mean you need 60 votes, but we've been miseducated.
It just means you need to wait out the person who's opposing.
You need 60 votes to bypass him being able to debate it. That's what you need, the extra 10 vote.
Right.
But otherwise, he could talk to his blue, and we could sit and wait him out if it take us 3 or 4 days.
Or 3 or 4 weeks.
But we going to pass this George Floyd lynching bill.
Exactly.
Right? But we not being educated on the political process, we can't even speak up for our children.
Right.
And we can't educate them on how to speak for themselves to give themselves a voice.
Right. Well, we don't know how to do it.
Because we volunteer ours away because we're not educated on the process.
Right.
This is what he's talking about.
Right.
You know, and the politics affect us so many negative ways in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
You know, so we have to learn to become politically savvy. We have to learn to re-educate ourselves, you know, as the collective. Even we set up our own online process, community, right? You know, where we go through and we read out process by process What's the procedures?
Let me ask you this: why do you think, for Black folks especially, why do you think we find it we approach or review learning politics as just so difficult? Why do you think we think like that?
Well, being in a place like where we from, right? Milwaukee, where gerrymandering is strong. So they what they do with gerrymandering is they find you got a black neighborhood, you vote Democratic, right? So Republicans get in power. What they do is they divide your neighborhood, right? They engulf it into Republican neighborhoods, right? So that your vote won't count. So it's mixed in with too many Republican votes, right?
Right.
So they do the gerrymandering process, but we don't really gather that. So we like, oh, my vote don't count. I voted for. I know we ain't over here voting for him, but they didn't divide your neighborhood in half. Half of it going to this white neighborhood, half of it going split up in this white neighborhood. They do that.
So, can I follow up with saying that as two examples you just gave two examples. The reason a lot of times we think politics is hard to learn because we think it's something more than something simple. Because, like you pointed out, uh, gerrymandering is just they just switch where your votes go. It's simple as that. A filibuster is nothing but who stays and argues out the longest or who wait out the other person arguing. It is nothing more than that. That
Well,
is it. And a lot of times, a lot of us think it's something, oh, it requires them to do this and they got to pass this and then they got to get this many votes and then they got to get the people from over here. No, it's actually, the process is simpler than you think. Like with filibustering, it's just who can out argue who and who can wait who out. That's what filibustering is. Gerrymandering is just, okay, I live on 10th and I live on 10th and Clark. And the area that 10th and Clark is inclusive of is, let's say, First and Richards, just basically down the street, Clark and Richards. But Clark and Richards is quote unquote Republican. From say like fifth or sixth center going up is considered Democrat. But all they'll do is just move the line.
mm-hmm.
That's all they did.
Yeah.
Move the line up to like 6 or 7.
Right.
And then take all the votes that would normally have been on the Democratic side of center voting and put them down there on the Richardson side of their. That's all it is. It's something simple like that. Politics is not that difficult to learn.
Well,
Would it be fair to say that that's basically
that's basically what it is, and
mm-hmm.
but the basis how they get around it is that you're divided.
Mm-hmm.
You're divided. If you collectively spoke up, this ain't the community we find. We're gonna file a lawsuit. We're gonna go to court. If you learn your procedures and follow your procedures. But the point with us is we're voting and putting in people who don't come from our community, who's not come from our conditions, right, and who are paid and by other people.
Right.
Right. That's the first thing you got to stop and say, no, you don't come from our conditions, our situations. You can't speak from us. You can't speak from us. And the only way to speak for us is if we're the people who finance your campaign, if it's 25, because you ain't got to do mass talking because we already picked you to speak for us. And this is what you're going to say.
Right.
This is what you're going to say. This is what you're going to do.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
That's the difference, and that's what a lot of them do. But it's the wealthy do it,
right? And the ones who are aware of the process, who actually, when we see it on little news counts or on sound bites, or even as it's presented in movies, and that's one of my favorite things. Everything that you need to know, since we love to watch movies and stuff, they put it in the movies. They put it there for you to know. It's just they have so much entertainment fodder that they added to it that it clouds the message that was put there. But what you need to understand more often than not is actually placed in a good, solid commentary type presentation, whether it's a movie or a show. But going back to that, like you said, you can't represent me if you don't understand my position and my specifics. And as you said earlier, it's kind of hard because we have been so thoroughly poisoned with anti-us ideology. Everything we have no interest in learning about the things that affects us, which is one of the primary things you talk about. You don't understand how these things affect you. You think they don't, but they do. And then you give up saying, well, my vote don't count. It's not that your vote don't count. It's just you don't know how to utilize your vote. And you can't say that that's not possible because it was done. That's why people were hurt for it. That's why they had all of these laws and policies and practices where they were keeping people from voting. If your vote really don't count, then why are they still going through all these efforts to keep you from doing so? So that's a lie. Let's stop telling ourselves that lie, correct?
They tried to actually discount the Milwaukee vote because they wanted not the black vote to go a certain way that it didn't go. It didn't go for. They knew the black vote was gonna go for Biden, so they wanted to discount the black vote everywhere. That's the same way as Georgia, right? Everywhere we was at, they tried to discount your vote. They are angry right now. They rioted on 6th Street because of black vote. We voted. We gave away our vote. Don't get me wrong now. For somebody I don't feel we should have gave our vote to, right? But I ain't gonna go into that now.
That's
That's another subject. We gave our vote away, right? That's true. But they still ran in that building, right? To counter our vote. Think about this: 66% of whites voted for Trump. 93% of blacks voted for Biden. The cities they protested.
They counted.
And the votes in the city that they tried to get the votes overturned at were black cities: Philadelphia, Detroit, Atlanta, Milwaukee.
So if your vote didn't really count, what was the purpose of the insurrection? What was the purpose of these efforts where they continued to try to suppress it? They had passed laws for it. So again, going back to what you said, when it was upsetting and it was disgusting to you when people said, my vote don't count. If it don't count, why are they doing all this? And why have they always done all this? So that's not necessarily true.
What it is you're not going to stand up for your vote.
Right.
See, you have poll watchers.
Right.
You have poll counters. You have volunteers to do these things, right, to secure the election.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to make your poll count. You got to do, you got recount processes that the people can call for. Right? You got to be prepared to go through those processes.
Right. Like anything else that you want.
That's worth having.
That's worth having, exactly.
So what happened is you decided that your vote wasn't worth fighting for anymore.
Powerful. Ooh.
Because our ancestors went through some things to vote.
And died. And children were murdered.
Some of them died registering to vote.
Mm-hmm.
People lost jobs to vote.
Mm-hmm. So if it wasn't important, why did they do all of that? Exactly. History repeating itself.
Oh, and not to mention, if you're not a registered voter, you don't show up on the jury trial, and they use that to prosecute your children.
Explain that.
Yeah, that's how they pick jury trial. They pick jury trial people registered for voting. That's why they didn't want you to vote. That's how come they always picked all white votings. All white. That's how they got all white juries.
Right, but you just recently made the comment about they punish your children. Explain that part.
Well, anything they find, anytime you go to court, your kids go to court, they find them guilty for the slightest thing. They ain't find their children guilty for, right? And you got all these white juries, or you got one black who being pressured by 11 whites, right, to prosecute this black person. Right. But whites are being held to, we got to find out their intent. We got to find out what he was thinking. We got to find, it's 1,000 things you got to find out. We got to come back and re-listen. We got to rewatch the slaying again because he might not meant to kill him.
Right.
You see?
Right.
But they get them benefits of a doubt because that person looked like them when they sitting on that trial.
Yeah, but you was talking about voting.
But I'm saying
specifically talking about that you said if you're not a registered voter.
If I'm saying you're not a registered voter, that's who sit on jury trials. Only registered voters sit on jury trials, right? And I'm saying, and not only that, I want us to understand this. We voted. We fought for the right to vote. We did the Civil Rights Act, right? But we ceased, right? And our lack of paying attention to politics, we ain't understood that white women receive 80% of all SBA set aside minority contracts. Because we don't understand the politics, the economics, that go into that. Because we gave up our right to vote.
Right.
We gave that up. It's a lot of economics that come with politics. A lot of business is come from politics. Right. So you giving that up, you giving up your right to vote, you leave your kids out of all that money. Right. Them trillions of dollars in state budgets that they talking about, that who they spending that money with.
Okay, now let me challenge you on that one. Even though your point, I understand your point. Even though you got communities where everyone is a registered voter, you got nice, very predominantly black communities that where everyone is a registered voter, and they still get bypassed for that.
We have mostly like a 40% voting rate in the black community of eligible voters. When you watch politics, we have like a 40% people vote. We voted high during Obama.
Right, but you also notice that everything that's reported is never reported accurately. Right. It's not always reported.
Well, we're not really that enthusiastic to vote, but we're not organized voters either.
That's true.
That's the point. Like I said, that's the point with giving away your vote.
No, I understand, because when they had the rappers and the moguls doing it, black folks' sense of commitment was higher.
Right.
Because the entertainers were encouraging them to do it, and then they was going out their way spending their money to foster a more positive attitude about voting. Like when they have Obama get in there, and
But so you got to we got to focus on a local level first.
Right.
We got to focus on your aldermans. The aldermans is the ones who decide what businesses in your community.
Right.
When you see all them liquor stores in your neighborhood and you don't own none of them, that's your alderman. Right?
Right.
So when you look and you see the black businesses don't get food stamps, all that, them your aldermans. So the economic conditions of your community locally,
it's still politics.
It's politics
and based upon political decisions. Right. And
so first thing you got to do is target locally in order to shape a proper environment for your children. Right? So you got to be up there and you got to say, well, my kids need this environment to grow in. We need a place to play. We need library. We need access to the internet. This is the things that my children need to prosper. This is where my tax dollars need to be going.
Right.
This is the person that deliver these things will get our vote. The person that doesn't will not get our vote.
Right.
Right. That's how you have to be as a collective. But if you in a community that you're trying to get out of, right, you're not going to be that invested in it.
Right. Or that you feel you're trapped in. And nothing that you can do is going to make a difference. Because that's the general feelings, attitudes, and actually words are used to express that feeling of self-loathing and lack of confidence and spirit, and what difference does it make? Right. They're gonna do what they want to do. Then people gonna do whatever they're gonna do. I ain't got no control. I ain't got that many voices. We don't stick together. I mean, we got all of these solutions. We got all of these answers. We got all these excuses and all of these rationalizations. And going back to the miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson, all of that stemmed from that.
Right. Yeah.
All of these social educational lies that we've been fed.
Because you got to understand, we in Milwaukee, right? So,
right.
Okay, I try to constantly bring it back to Milwaukee, like you said, I would go up. But okay, we're in Milwaukee, right? Okay, right. Walker put a lien on property taxes, right, in Milwaukee.
Right.
How do that affect you?
Well,
property tax.
He put a lien
on property, meaning a lien, where he cut half property taxes on rent.
Okay.
On half the property tax on houses, right?
Okay.
So you have to understand, in the inner city, you have maybe a 20-25% home ownership rate.
Right.
So he basically put that cut taxes on wealthy people owning houses in the inner city.
Okay.
Property taxes finance your school.
Right.
So you're paying rent for money to go outside your community based on a policy that the governor picked, right?
Right.
Depriving wealth out of your schools.
Right.
So you have to understand these things, and then their failure to reinvest in these dilapidated properties in your community is also depriving wealth from your schools. So when you look at your surrounding, your area, and you feel disturbed by it and the conditions of it,
Hold yourself accountable.
because you allowing that neighborhood to die because you're not invested in it because you're not an owner of it. So you need to be going down there fighting for land, for home rights, affordable home rights for your community based off the income that's in that community.
Okay.
So but that's with politics. But if you understand, we so miseducated. We don't understand the power of the politics. We don't know that these people houses was given to them by the government loans, backing their mortgages.
Right.
So when we've been miseducated about that. We thinking they just bought all these houses. We don't understand the government backed that.
Right.
So now we gotta say, well, you hold on, you back theirs. I need to own this.
Right.
You need to back me. My kids need to own. Their kids built for generations off of that.
Right.
That's understanding how politics apply in other people's lives, but they choose not to do that. They sell you this dream of this.
Right.
We made it all through business. And then if you study politics and pay attention to politics, then you're going to say, well, hold on. This is funded by the government. They got this from the government. They got the measles shots was given away for free. For vaccine was given away to somebody. They made billions of dollars, right? You could say COVID shot free for you, but the government paying them billions of dollars for something that they created. So much of their success come off of politics.
Yeah.
But we're not educated on these things.
Right.
And I understand all of us.
Miseducated.
Right, we miseducated. And I understand all of us is not. But if we took the time, we could nurture him in economics, him in politics.
Right.
That's from our interest, and we pull as a collective.
Right.
Right? But our status in life is based on having more than each other.
Right.
Because when I go out there, I ain't got more than them.
Right.
So it don't mean nothing out there.
At all.
You know, I'm not impressed with you pulling up, them not pulling up a Lexus. All of them got Lexus.
Yeah.
It don't mean nothing. I got to come back. I got to ride through Capitol to stun on the poor people.
Right.
So we got that identity issue.
Right.
Right? This is one of the things he talking about.
Right. The identity issue.
We have that, because that's how we built ourselves up off of materialism, because this is what we was deprived of. So we're quicker to invest in the materialism rather than we're quicker to invest in ourselves now.
Right.
Reconstruction period, when we left out of slavery, we invested in ourselves.
Right.
And the material things came, high on home ownerships,
right,
businesses.
Because of that work ethic, the process, the dedication, the sense of commitment, the sense of community. That's why those things were a natural progression and reward for those efforts that those people made to, pick themselves up by their bootstraps. That famous statement is people like to say, well these people picked them up.
We the only people that did that. To be honest,
truthfully
during
honest,
Reconstruction, we the only people that did
really
that.
did pick ourselves
and
up.
This is what Carter G. Woodson, this what he's talking about, miseducation of the Negro, and what they learned was, if you destroy the black family nucleus, and this is my thing about black people building that black family nucleus, is that is the foundation, right, that allows youth, children to do whatever they want to do in life, right? That family nucleus. And like I said, if you look back, it was always a lot of sacrifices Black people made when they did the civil rights movement, right? You'll lose your jobs. So a lot of times the son that wasn't working would have to sacrifice so pops can keep working and take care of the family. You know, that allowed the son to be out front. That's why I was a youth out front. You know. So these are the things he keep talking about when he talking about the miseducation of the Negro, is that, you know, is that we every system of every structure of America we have failed to been taught, and we have to figure out how to re-educate ourselves on. You know, you have capitalism. You know, we taught to be laborers and to work for wages.
Right.
That's not appropriate in a capitalist system. So you have to learn. So our schools have to. Our schools ain't teaching it. So you have to teach your children what is capitalism, what is the reinvesting of capital, what is the turning capital into more capital, into land, into things. What is the difference between a consumer and a producer?
Right.
See, we've been miseducated on those things.
Right.
Like, you know, you never gonna be wealthy as a consumer.
Never. Not even materialistically. Never.
So you're gonna have to be a producer. You have to provide something, have something of trade, have something of value to offer.
Right.
You know, it's like if you go out all the time and your one partner always broke. We ain't going to go get him.
Right.
He ain't never got nothing to bring to the table.
Right.
You know, you got Thanksgiving, you're having Sunday dinner, and this person never bring a plate. You know, that's why it's called. We do what is called a potluck, meaning everybody bring a pot.
I remember those.
You know, so you know you come up without a pot, people look at you. You come just to eat.
Right. Right. Right.
And that's the condition that Black people in, because we don't understand the difference between what capitalist and being a laborer is. Right. You know, that's why we don't understand the significance of them getting them houses and being able to have equity lines of credit out them houses and be able to take that money and buy more things. Right. And to take that money and use that money to generate more money. Right. That's capitalism. Right. You waiting on somebody to pay you $16 an hour. Right. Yeah. They like, no.
Are you waiting for some windfall of money out the sky because of the lottery, which is why that amount keeps going up, and the higher it gets, the more people buy into it. And, you know, and traditionally related, in all my years of knowing about the lottery, I don't know the specific numbers. I'm certain you would. What is it, like 1 to 3% people that look like us won it?
Listen, I can't. The lottery thing is a sad.
I know, but I'm just saying.
It's
that's the one of the other things that we wait for. We wait for something.
Well, it never wins.
I think that's a religious. I think that's connected.
Look at the communities that win it.
Well, we waiting for it, like they say when they wait for Jesus to come save us. Okay, you wait for the lottery. You waiting to win the lottery?
How's that gonna save you? When have you seen? When have you seen a lottery hit in the hood? When have you seen them go?
Only time I know of it is when the older brother from that Center Street store, the one on 3rd and Center, he bought a ticket and he won $1 million.
Yeah. I never seen a Powerball.
Never.
Or none of them won at an inner city gas station.
Never.
But I will see a Black person in the inner city daily, especially on 42nd, spending $20, $30 a day on lottery tickets, something
scratch offs and all of that. Yeah.
Something they took from Black people. That's another thing. That's why the miseducation is so cold. Like, they took lottery from Black people. Sam Gutiano, right, went to Joliet prison. I forgot the brother's name, but him and the Johnson brothers, his two cousins, was running numbers. They taught Sam Gutiano how to run numbers. The Johnson brothers was the two Black dudes that were the first Blacks to buy a seat on the New York Stock Exchange. It's crazy.
Right.
This
History.
where they took numbers from. They used to take the last 3 digits from the stock exchange. When the stock exchange hit, that'd be the number. That's where the lottery come from.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This what black people was doing. You hit your number. It was 3 numbers back then, about 3 or 4 numbers back then.
Yep.
You hit your number.
3 or 4 numbers.
You hit your number, boom, you win. That's what black people playing penny and nickel, nickel numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Italians greedy. He educated them, brother. Black people always being open. He taught the Italian. Sam Gucciano came back, kidnapped one of the Johnson brothers, and they went to war about the numbers. That's why you get in Harlem, you get the Queens Bank, all that. That was the lottery before the lottery.
Exactly.
Billions of dollars of coming out of something we created as black people, right, is being used by Europeans, something that they was busting us for, locking us up for, right? This I'm talking about this the miseducation of the Negro. This happens constantly. Anything you do, they make illegal. Think about it. They did the same thing with marijuana. This is the process. This is the process. If you do it, I make it illegal. Make it legal for us to do it.
Right.
This was numbers. Now they got all type of scratch off lottery tickets. People got companies doing. You ain't got no black people with no lottery companies, right? So now, on top of that, they do the same thing. Marijuana. You smoke marijuana. You can grow marijuana. We make it illegal, economically, because you don't pay attention to the politics of this. We've been miseducated about the politics of this. The reason why they were so focused, that's why it's a powerful book when you say that about education too, and the miseducation of the Negro. The reason why white people, I'm going to say, why the Republicans got so focused on judges, because during the civil rights movement, they was losing in court. They was losing in court. So what they did is they used politics to get themselves in a position to select federal judges that will rule against the law. This is what they did. This is what they can. That's why you got 6 Supreme Court judges. So I just want us to understand that politics is so powerful with us, and we really and that our vote don't count, right? That is the miseducation of the Negro. When they going out there and they showing you they doing everything to take your right to vote. When you leave jail, the first thing they make you sign is a paper that says, I cannot vote. And they force that on you even if you refuse to sign your parole rules. They make sure to let you know you can't vote. It's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you listen, if they're not going to count your vote and you all go into it and you all fall into it, then you kill the whole illusion of democracy. You shatter everything then. If that's the true case, then you got the ability to break the whole facade. If that's really the case. Because now you show the all white people vote no matter at all, period. It's all a lie. If that really was the case. So, break the facade.
On that last point you made, I just wanted to add something that you'd be able to help them understand. Like you said, if you're on paper or something and you have discharge rules, they tell you, they highlight and they emphasize you better not vote. You cannot vote. Can you explain to the people how, just like the old slavery system, 3/5, if you're incarcerated, they can count you,
right,
for their voting power. Those communities that the black people especially are incarcerated in, it's the same thing.
It's the same
all
structure.
of them people in the prison, all them brothers and sisters in them prisons, they count you to
for
up
their
population count, to up their representation.
Same way the South did.
Same way.
See,
exactly.
The South, what they did was they wanted more political power, so they counted their slaves as 3/5 of a man. That's why we got to pay attention to the miseducation of the Negro. What they did is they counted their slaves as 3/5 of a man, which gave them a greater population, but these 3/5 of a man could not vote, right? So when you do that, they got more power because they represent more people that had no say so. This is the same thing they doing up north now. They incarcerating you, taking you out north, counting your population out north. Now you are a representation of areas that you have no say-so in, and they make sure to notify you you can't vote and that you have no say-so. Then not only that, they get roles, everything fixed off this population number that they take out your community. This is what we talking about when we talk about the miseducation of the Negro and why politics is very important. It's important to vote, but it's important to understand what you're voting for and to demand something for your vote. But it's important to work with people of collective. You're talking about democracy, meaning its strength in numbers. We share a similar condition. This is what he's talking about with the, I keep saying this, with the miseducation of the Negro. Our condition is similar. You think your car a little better and your condition is different. It's not. It's not. It's not. Let me remind you one more time. It's not.
Right.
They, what it's called, driving while black, DWB. They remind black people in nice cars and their children all the time. It's not. Your condition is not different than ours. Right? So this is why he's saying the miseducation of the Negro. He's telling you, you don't understand that your value is within each other. He's telling you that you're all going to be treated the same. Democracy is about strength in numbers. You look, what you think your one vote going to do for out of 300 million? No, you got to pool with your people of your area. First, consolidate, tackle the area y'all in, concentrate that power. Boom, take control of your area, self-autonomy over that area. This is what our community, we want to stop violence. We need work in our community. This is what we standing on. He brings to this community. You letting them talk about jobs to other people. They talk about the working class people. Who is not the working class? You telling me them dudes at the temp service not working class? Why is he at the temp service? He's working.
Or trying to find work.
That dude that working, that cleaning that the stadium, doing games. He's not working class. He's not trying to elevate and find better work. So you let them tell you this is a working class and there's a non-working class of people? Or is it a group of people who don't want to work for nothing? Or who don't want to work and don't benefit from it? Because you don't want to do the politics to demand those type of opportunities is presented to your community, and what you're doing is you're criticizing your people for their environment that somebody else shaped, and you don't want to step up and do nothing about it. That's what he's saying about the miseducation of the Negro. That's what he's saying. He's saying people went out and they demanded that they be treated this way and shaped this way by this government as a group, and they stuck together on that. And due to that, they got results. So you going, trying to spread yourself out and work amongst people who disagree with you, who don't even feel like you have a right to exist, right? Thinking that that's freedom. And everybody working against you. They're going to work to destroy your children's self-esteem. They're going to call them niggas, tell them they're not supposed to be here. They're not smarter than them. They're not smarter than them. They monkeys. They're going to outcast them, make them feel unwelcome, destroy their self-esteem. But you feel good because you lived out here with people who didn't want you out here. This is what he talk about when he talk about the miseducation of the Negro, when you don't want to just build what's necessary for you and your people to thrive, create the necessary resources. Because you've been miseducated about how America functions. And you allowing them to have a school system that doesn't teach your children the American system of function. They don't know the democracy. They don't understand how democracy functions, and they're not taught how capitalism works. The basis of America. How is that an education system? How is that an education system if they're not telling you the two bases, capitalism and democracy, is how America works? And your children ain't learning that. So what are we paying for? What are you sending them there for? Babysitting? Because you have to work twice? Is that really why we sending this kid to school, to be babysitted?
More often than not. The unfortunate reality is more often than not because they don't have, like you pointed out before, they don't have the family structure of babysitters where it's the nieces and the cousins and the aunties that wasn't working or was out of work temporarily or what we didn't have somebody like that. So yeah, basically they sit there and it's actually twofold. They sit there to babysit, and now what I've recognized in the last 10, 20 years, they sat there to raise them because the parents have them, but they don't want to raise them.
Y'all
they
know?
pass off that responsibility to the daycares and whatnot. I've been noticing that, especially over the last 10 years. I've noticed that more than just the basic babysitting aspect. It's the actually raising them. That's why I made that comment earlier when I said situations where the parent would come and the child would act up because they didn't want to leave with the parent because they had more of an emotional attachment to the caregiver.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That is a problem with in the community is the aspect of actually raising a child and having those communications with a child to help them prosper. And a lot of that is because we haven't went through the process ourselves to develop and grow as an individual, right? To be able to spread that on to somebody else. Right. And again, why he speaks about how you're educated about yourself as well. Right. Because if you refuse to learn about yourself, well, let's put it this way: if you say the first law of nation is self-preservation, right?
Mm-hmm. Written on the Egyptian walls.
Elijah Muhammad said the first law of nature would be know thyself.
Yeah, that's written on the Egyptian walls. Same thing.
Yeah, you would have to know thyself to preserve yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't fight for something you don't know.
Exactly.
So you can't fight to maintain to who you are as a black person, who your children should be as a black person when you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's the first thing you have to do is rebuild your own self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have to start to look at yourself different.
Right.
Because those negative things how you look at yourself, you see in your child.
Mm-hmm.
The negative things a woman seeing in her child's father, she's seeing her son.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And what we might consider negative could be a positive. My pop was a fighter, right? Mm-hmm. They looked at it as a negative because it wasn't channeled properly, so I fought a lot. Mm-hmm. But as you see, my fight has changed.
Right. Because you still have the spirit of a fighter.
Right. It just channeled different.
Just channeled different.
So that spirit that my father had was excellent spirit.
Right.
We just didn't know how to nurture and channel it properly.
Right.
And so, and if you don't learn that self knowledge, you're not gonna be able to see that in your children.
Right.
And you're not gonna be able to nurture who they are. Right. You're not gonna be able to bring the best out of them. Right. And that's the same with your community. You're gonna have a dilapidated community if you don't have a need, if you don't feel a desire to invest and build it up. Right. Same way when you get a car. You get a car. That's a 66 Chevy. It might be towed up, but you invest in it
because you see potential in it, and you see it more. And unfortunately, for a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us, we see more potential in a material object than we do in the human we help create.
So you got to take that same concept. I can build this car up and build the value up of it. Mm-hmm. It's the same way with your children. It's the same way with your community because it actually is that with your community.
Right, because your community is an extension of your immediate family.
Right. Exactly. So if you go down there, you say, listen, I got to go knock on my neighbor's door and we got to pull together and we got to demand, I might be renting, but we got to demand homeowner rights and they got to be comparable to what's affordable, what the average income in this community is. Right. And then from there, we can build the value up in it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
That's how you got to go. We got to fight for homeowner rights down there. But we finna fight. We don't want no private. We finna fight. We want a law passed. We don't want no private equity firm buying houses over here making nothing affordable for us. If we finna go get that passed right now.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? We're not finna lock them price houses outside. So the price houses too high for our kids to be able to form houses to be permanent renters. Right. That's the politics of it.
Exactly. Right.
You know, them the things he talking about with the miseducation.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So, yeah, and especially Milwaukee. Yeah. You got so many rundown houses.
Yeah.
You
drive past them lots. Houses that we seen was 3, 4 in a row. Now that's just an empty lot because those 3, 4 houses that was once there, like on 27 between Vienna and Melvina, they ain't there. Mm-hmm. It's just a stretch where 3 houses used to be. And the same thing on 20th, the same thing on Hopkins, the same thing on
and then what they
do, all over.
And then what they do is they come back in the inner city and they buy them in that area for dirt cheap, like on 20th over there. And then they will they will build houses up, cheap houses, but they will price them out of the range of that community. Mm-hmm. You know, so you know you got to really pay attention to that, like right. You know, because you got $130,000 houses right there, but you know what jobs you got over there.
Right. How you gonna afford something like that?
You know, you just think about it. You go down Walnut and you go from 20th and you head all the way to what decent job you see. You go all the way out to 60th. Say, what decent jobs you see out going out that way?
None. The only one, if you're using Walnut, the only one that's Walnut. I'm thinking Fond du Lac because I'm thinking of MCTS.
Yeah, you got a few small scattered out businesses in our community, but you know they hard to get in. Master Lock, all of them almost impossible to get in. But it's been on 35th for
Harley Davidson been off of 37 forever. Master Lock been on 30th forever. Yeah.
So you look at that neighborhood.
Just naming those two, and they right in the hood,
right
in the. Miller ain't so hard to get in as it once was, and I'm not really sure how hard. Like any of them, they've been difficult to, but I met a lot of black people.
Well, a lot of them factories and a lot of them like hardly been rotating people. They have people working for 9 months, then lay them off for 3-6 months at a time, like they did Antoine, a couple more people. You know what I'm saying? So, but they did they did a lot of people like that.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, they do. They were doing a lot of people like that.
Earlier in my years in the '80s, I applied to them. And I'll never forget it. They told me I was too qualified. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what that meant until my mother explained it to me. She said, that means they don't want to hire you.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait.
Well, they're trying to say you would get bored at the job. That's what they try to use that to say that. But it's just another excuse not to hire somebody.
Yeah, that's so because you can't be overqualified for a job you have no experience for.
Right.
I had no experience for the job that I was applying for. So I can't be overqualified for a job position I'm applying for that I have absolutely no experience for.
Well, we that's the thing about the you know, this is the thing with we're saying with the miseducation of the Negro, right? You can't legislate people's hearts.
No, you can't.
So,
legislate their pockets.
Yeah, but so the need for blacks to build their own and have their own gonna always be there because nobody gonna treat you like you treat yourself or your own, right? But now the issue is that the longer we are in the longer your mind is perceive them as something greater than yourselves, the more difficult it's gonna be to wean you off of and learn to love your own people. That's the only issue is, because we fantasized outside of us. We glorified them as something, as a deity almost.
Right.
And like I said, that because, we're not producers either or anything. So, you know, we would look up to people we got to receive everything from, you
Right.
know, because they basically cut your water off,
Right.
you know. So,
Right.
we basically place them in a God-like status,
True.
you
True.
know.
For the most part. Generally, yeah, true.
You know, so
that's how we were miseducated. That everything of sustenance and everything of importance and everything of worship is them. So yeah.
And that's why that's why, like, with me, my thing is that with Black people is that re-educate yourself, put your efforts and energy into you and your people first.
Right.
Because, like I said, they've built wealth and built value off of just being white.
Right.
Right. And that and that value is built up off the back of you. So you got it's
Right.
built to stand on top of you.
Right.
So, you know, and they working as a collective on that concept.
Right.
That we are above you, no matter what. I don't care what's my life. You know, I done seen some funny shaped people that, like, you know, like right when we gave me a hard time one time, like, you know, tried to call me out my name, and I looked at it like, you don't think you're superior? You see your genes? Like, stop it. We almost the same age, and your skin is clinging to your body like it's about to fall off, like it's hanging off a cliff.
Wow.
But, you know, I'm just saying
that's
that
the way we're socialized. That's the way we're miseducatedly socialized to view one another.
Yeah. I'm saying, like, you know, it'd be the most out of shape this white dude is go up to the brother, you know, and talk about him like you beneath, like he beneath you.
Right.
But
But that's because how we're trained.
They're trying to believe that,
and we're trained to believe that they're right when they say it.
Right, and they trying to believe that. See, that's why, like, you gotta understand, like, even with we trained not to go to certain areas, they trained that we shouldn't be in certain areas.
Right.
And Black people will tell you all the time, I ain't going out there with them white folks.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we know we likely to get harassed. Mm-hmm. And they going to harass you because like, that nigga ain't got no business out here.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know.
Like I said, conditioning.
Right.
I have one word that we don't like being used in to describe our condition. Okay. If conditioning is the word used to describe our condition, why would you have a problem with it? Because you can understand the condition, circumstances we find ourselves in. I had that problem when I spoke to different people. They're like, well, I don't like that word. Why? It's the truth. It's the same. It's the same thing as saying being miseducated. Or that, well, why can't you just say that? Why are you letting one word bother you so much that you're missing the point of the word? You're focusing on the word itself as opposed to the point. Or like Eddie Griffith said in one of his comedy specials, when you have the Buddhists, the monks, the this, that, and the other, and it's like, who cares who is the messenger? Did you get the message? It don't necessarily matter, but for Black folks, we like that sometimes, about which word is used. Did you get the meaning from the word? Because it means the same thing, and then sometimes it might not. That particular word is aptly used. It's correct. The unfortunate conditions we find ourselves in, individually and collectively, is wholly based upon being conditioned to view ourselves a certain way, think a certain way, look at things a certain way, react to things a certain way, respond to things a certain way, embrace things a certain way, reject things a certain way. That's called conditioning. It's just like the example you gave with the two Oscar fish in the tank. They always kept bumping noses. You put that invisible piece of plexiglass in there that fooled them into believing that they were still seeing the same thing until they kept running into it. After a while, they realized they had to avoid that. Even when you took it out, they were conditioned to understand that that thing's still there.
Yeah.
I'm going to get there, and I know what's going to happen. Same thing
We had
with humans.
you had to
Same thing
train
with
them to
black.
cross. You had to take the fish thing. You had to take the fish thing in eventually and swim up and push it across so they know that the glass thing
that it was gone.
the fish net was gone.
And I used the word conditioning because they didn't like the word training.
All right.
Okay, well, like I've explained to a lot of black people that I spoke to, if you're offended by the word usage, the word is being used, the descriptive word I'm using it to explain our condition, that says more about you than it does me, because I don't have a problem with the word in that it is what happened. And the sad part is, you know that what I'm saying and what I'm offering you is the same. You just don't like the word. Okay, you might want to work on that, because that shouldn't hold that much weight that you would disregard the purpose of me using the word, even when you could say the same word for the same reason. We got to get better than that. Like you said, the miseducation.
That because we don't understand why Rockefeller said they built the school system, the public school system for.
To educate people to work.
To be workers.
To be workers.
Train employees.
Train employees.
So he created the school system to condition people to be workers, right? You're sending your children off to be conditioned and are offended about the word conditioned, right? While you have been conditioned to do the same routine every day. Get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, do this, the same thing, come to the house, pick the kids up at this time. You have been conditioned all for the benefits of corporate America.
Right. And instead of being offended by the word, the focus should be, if I do understand why I dislike the word because of how it makes me feel, focus on making sure that you don't do that past it to your child. How about that one? Instead of focusing on how it makes you feel, what do you think gonna happen to that child when they discover it? They're gonna look back at you and be like, okay, you knew this? You didn't protect me? You didn't help me?
Well, that's why your kids don't listen to you now, though. But I think we embrace the fact that the American dream is dead. Like, I believe that black people have embraced the concept of not of you building a business unless you're an athlete or you are a rapper, right, or some type of entertainer, right? But other than that, we have embraced the concept that the American dream is dead. We are not encouraging children to open businesses. You're encouraging your children to get a job as soon as they get out and help out with these bills. Right. You have embraced the fact that the American dream is dead. So you have no problem with the conditioning. You don't want to say it's conditioning because you're not in a position to break the conditioning.
Right.
So let this go. But all right, we're gonna end this conversation.
Oh yeah, we're gonna pick this up again and later on in the week. But as always, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure speaking to you, brother. It's a pleasure listening to your statements, and enjoying how that growth in you has come out in such a strong force that our conversations are full of excitement, debatable excitement, but they're always interesting because they're nurturing for us both. And again, it's a pleasure that you allow me to engage you, so the listeners and the watchers of these videos that you are recording see a living, breathing, speaking example of what it is that you continuously promote and what you expound upon and why you express it so strongly. It's possible. It's very possible. Saying that it ain't, that's just excuse making.
Yeah.
And you don't make them no more. Yeah. So they have no reason to make them either. Right. On that note, I thank you very much, brother, for allowing me your time.
Thank you.